Hello and good day, Welcome to the Super Good Camping Podcast. My name is Pamela.
I'm Tim.
And we are from supergoodcamping.com. We're here because we're on a mission to inspire other people to get outside and enjoy camping adventures such as we have as a family. Today's guest is a Canadian knife maker based in Manitoba. He forges camping and hunting knives as well as culinary ones, often with very cool handles. Please welcome the president of the Manitoba Blacksmith Guild and owner of Radiate A Forge, Justin Lamoureux.
Yeah. Wow, that was an awesome intro. It's always like, what are they going to say? And wow, that feels good.
It's a surprise.
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
No
well,
problem.
thanks for coming out. You're our first Manitoban.
Yes. And I love canoeing, so this works out well.
See, so much better, right?
Yeah.
Right on. So let's work with your origin story. How did you get into? I would assume you didn't jump right into knives. You probably had to learn how to operate a forge and stuff like that. But how did you get to where you're at?
No, I jumped right in. Yeah. I had the first episode of Forge and Fire came out on television on History Network, and I saw their backyard setups, and I was like, oh man, if these guys can do it with this equipment, like I have half that crap in my yard too. So I'm going to head out back and see what I can piece together. And at the time, there was a really good website called Instructables. I loved it. You'd go on there and it was just like tutorials and guides on how to make different things. And there happened to be how to make a forge on that website. So kind of ran to Home Depot, got the little parts that I needed, plugged the propane into it, and prayed, and didn't blow myself up, which was very good. And lo and behold, I had some hot steel, and then the mission continued by going to different auctions because I didn't know where to source some of the more specific material, like an anvil. Where do you buy an anvil nowadays? Well, with the community that I'm part of, I can call a few people and probably get one in half an hour. But at the time, I had none of that. And it was going to auctions and trying to find things that I could piece together to kind of create a setup to make knives. So now it's a different situation in the shop. I'm not fully kitted out, but there's still there's always equipment I would love to have, but but it's super functional now. So
right on. How long you been doing it?
Probably going around 8 years now. So yeah, the first few years you do it when you can, and now I'm pretty much out there every day. So unless I'm working on my website or spending time at the family in summer, I love canoeing. If I can, this past summer it was a situation of like, okay, last summer I worked too much in the shop, and it kind of made it for like a summer that was too occupied working. So let's try to spend as much time in the bush as we can, and that's what happened. So
yeah, life work balance, man.
Oh yeah. More in the bush the better.
Yes.
Yeah.
My balance would be way too much in the canoe, but yes.
Yeah.
And so where do you go canoeing?
Well, in Manitoba here, there's the north is huge, and I haven't ventured out terribly far. Generally from Winnipeg, you can go east towards Ontario, and like from Winnipeg to get to Ontario, you're looking at like an hour and a half drive. So we've gone out to experimental lakes. It's a small chain of lakes that you can portage from lake to lake, and each one is as beautiful as the next. There's huge rock faces. I think like I like to watch Sander Butnick in wintertime. I've got all his videos kind of put aside. I don't want to watch them in summer. That's for wintertime. And I see some of the beautiful scenery out in Ontario, and like it's starting to turn and look more like that. So we've got that in Ontario, and then if you go north in Manitoba, like northeast from Winnipeg, you've got Nopaming Park, and it's just rivers and lakes. Like it's beautiful. Less rock. Well, it's very rocky. It's definitely Canadian Shield, but there's less elevation change, so it's a lot of pine. Kind of darker waters, like kind of murkier than the ones that we see in Ontario, but still gorgeous solitude. Yeah.
I would take less elevation change just for the portages. That would be fine by me.
I guess so, eh? I've never really thought of that. Yeah, we'll just a lot of the places that we go, some trails are established. Because I've been doing this since, like, I was just looking at my photos since like 97, and yeah, we'd head on some rivers where it was like portage on the left or portage right, we don't know, so we'd bushwhack some trails and make our way through. So
So lots of stuff that's outside of whatever your provincial parks and that sort of jazz. Lots of what the heck do we call it? They call
Crown land.
That's it, Crown land
yeah,
camping.
well, they're provincial park, but they're not necessarily established as canoe routes, so they're not traveled.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh man, there's I look at the map every spring, try to figure out where can we go that we haven't been. And, oh, there's that little lake there that we can probably make it to. And like, we're getting on the old side now, and some of my friends don't really want to, like, no, I want to go to that site that we found 5 years ago, and it's just nice, and we can just pull in and like relax and enjoy ourselves. I've got a bit more sense of adventure still, and I want to go bushwhacking and whatnot. So we'll try to head out to a few of those lakes this summer.
And so do you hunt as well as canoeing and camping?
I've hunted. I wouldn't call myself a hunter though.
Yeah.
I love fishing, but yeah, not hunting.
So you probably have a really good fillet knife then for fishing.
I do. Yeah, I make one.
Well, yeah, the knives that you produce they look like a work of art. They're so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Handles, like, are the handles you can custom make each of those, or is it something you just purchase handles?
No, you're making it to fit the knife itself.
Beautiful.
So like
yeah.
each one needs to be like epoxied onto the blade, pinned with different types of pins. Some are like a fiberglass pin or a brass pin, and then you're making sure everything's as perfectly square as possible. Otherwise, you start carving away from it, and things get a little wonky. To be avoided. And then, yeah, you're sculpting that thing from scratch. So, as far as like time consumption, the blade definitely takes more time than the handle, but the handle is definitely it's a few hours for sure. And then you're down to like all your fine grits of sandpaper to get everything nice and is like definitely for like a wood handle. If you're going to a 800 grit or 1,000 grit, or some people even say no, you should go higher, 1,200, and it shows the grain of the wood a lot better. So when you're using some burls, some like stabilized burls, some are soaked into like an epoxy so that it stays moisture resistant, avoids warping and rot and all that. They like when you get to high sheen and high grit, it shows so much more. It's so beautiful.
Do you wet sand in the wood as well?
I've tried it. I've used some oil to, and no, actually, so yes, some grains are porous. I was using a bog oak. I believe it was out of Ukraine. So they'll pull out old oaks that have been like soaking in a bog, and that's kept it oxygen free, and it's almost black. A beautiful wood. And because of the pores in there, you can sand with oil, and as you're sanding, the wood kind of fills in those pores, and as the oil oxidizes, it leaves the wood there, and it creates a finer finish. So
Cool.
they'll do that on gun stocks as well, and it gives a beautiful finish, but it depends on the wood that you're using. Oh yeah, people dig things out of the ground and put them in knife handles like all the time. There's mammoth ivory that people have been like, as some of the permafrost melts away, it's revealing different animal parts, and usually mammoth molar or mammoth ivories, and people are searching them out. And again, you need to stabilize it so it fills in the pores and keeps it from falling apart, but it gives some really unique components that you can add to handles.
That'd be cool. So I guess that's another skill set on top of, learning how to forge, learning how to work with wood. What was the epoxy learning curve like? Like, are there kits? Do you mix your own?
Yeah, in Canada, there's Canadian Engineering Company, chemical engineering company, something like that, CEC Corp, and they have a different lines of epoxies. There's like a C Tough, which is like a 24-hour, so it like as it binds, it holds it down like nothing, compares to nothing. Your 30-minute epoxy, so you've got about a 7 to 8 minute working time, and that gives you usually enough time, but doesn't give you that as tough as a hold. And then you have your 5 minute epoxy, and that one's like in an emergency, you gotta like, this needs to come together and I need to use it. And then your CA glue, so your crazy glue, and that stuff is actually really strong as well. And I've started to use a little bit more of it, especially with like the segmented handles where you're trying to piece things together, and it's like, okay, if I let go, things are going to start moving. So you just see CA glue, give it a little spray of activator or accelerant, and then it solidifies and you're good to go. And it's tough as heck too.
So is this all self-taught, Justin, or did you train with
Um,
somebody? Did you?
yeah, within the community, like I'm working with a new steel this week, and it's a steel I've never used before, so I'll be reaching out to a few people that I know have used it, so they can give me some pointers. So the community is super willing to share information. Like if you're a new knife maker, there's huge groups on Facebook. There's a lot of notable YouTubers that just share everything. Like they're not gatekeeping information, and because it's it's such a difficult craft to become good at, and it's such a difficult craft to learn. It is honestly a bottomless pit of information, and you can go so many different routes with it if you're wanting to learn just about metal and metallurgy and all the heat treatment, and it's, yeah, and then all your woods and all your glues, and then if you want to get into leather working to make the sheaths, or kydex, which is like a heat moldable plastic, and to actually get good at these things is a huge investment of time. So there's
Yeah.
not really any gatekeepers. We point, and then we say learn, and we'll talk to you in 2-3 years when you've kind of like when you've like not mastered it, but it's when you're getting a grasp of it.
You're getting better at it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you mentioned that you're using a new steel.
Mm-hmm.
Educate me. What's the difference? What components make up different types of steel? Like, I know, a regular steel that's going to rust, a stainless steel. Okay, that's
Yeah.
pretty much my knowledge. How
Right.
does?
Well, this steel is called MagnaCut. It's going to someone in Toronto. So that's I was talking to him before Christmas, and he wanted a bushcrafting knife, and I was happy to use this material because I hadn't done it before. But it's also, okay, now I got to use this material. I'm gonna have to reach out to friends and figure it out. But basically, it was developed by Dr. Laren Thomas. He wrote a book recently on knife engineering, and he goes into like, actually, if you want to learn about steel, that's the book. But it goes into uh, a balance of different chemical components that you can add to your steel, so that it keeps a fine grain. Because if you have a larger grain, a coarser grain in your steel, it could become more fragile. So you want a really fine grain, so it keeps it tough, and that'll also allow you to keep a fine edge. And this MagnaCut is like, from what we see, it's almost a perfect peak balance of all the components that you need to create like the one of the hardest steels out there. So because of that, I'm a little bit worried about using it, but excited about it too. So yeah. So as far as like components, there's vanadium, molybdenum, there's nickel, there's obviously carbon. That's what's going to give you your the hardness to the steel, and iron. And like in terms of iron, usually we're talking about like 90% iron, and then that 10% is different chemical or metallic components to create your steel blend. And the way they mix the steels as well is done differently from certain processes. CPM is a powdered metallurgy, so they'll put the metals together in a powder and then forge that together and then heat through process of heating and cooling to create your blends of steel. You can't just like heat it up in on your stove and like add recipe ingredients. It has to be done in a certain way so that you get these chemical bonds that are lasting.
Cool. So,
Yeah.
and do you use something like let's say, so Pamela mentioned a filleting knife versus say something that's bigger, chunkier, like a cleaver style. Two
Right.
different types of steel?
Not necessarily. A lot of the properties of a steel, like performance of like flexibility, it comes from either the heat treatment. So you could go a little bit hotter in your tempering, so it creates more of a tougher steel. But then at a certain point, you're going to have steel that's too soft to like hold an edge. So there's a balance point there. But a lot of it is from the geometry. So your cleaver is going to be a lot hardier, a lot thicker, made for cutting through bone, chopping down a tree or whatever. And then your fillet is down to a 16th of an inch on the spine, really thin, and that's going to allow the knife to flex. And then you can have like, with my fillet knife, I'm starting at 3/32 by the handle, and then to the tip, it's slowly tapering down so that it's a distal taper. So it's narrow, getting thinner to the tip and in height profile as well. So you get a thinner, more flex at the tip and less near the handle.
So flex is determined more about
Geometry.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Geometry, heat treatment as well. If you're going to flex something that's heat treated to be a little bit too hard, then you have a chance of breaking a blade or cracking a tip or something like that, which happens. Like I tend to go a little bit harder in my steels. The knives that you purchase from the store, they're made to not break. They're made to not have any returns. Like that's their goal, is to like sell you the knife and never see you again until you want a new one. So they heat treat their knives so they're significantly softer than, I guess, professionally made or custom made knives. And those are made for peak performance. So they'll hold an edge longer. They'll stay they'll keep those properties that you want in a knife like for much longer than your commercially available knives.
Yeah, I have a decent set of kitchen knives, but I have to sharpen the damn things like all the time.
Oh yeah, you shouldn't. You should like once a year. Like
I would love that.
Dependent on your cutting boards, because some people use like a ceramic or a glass cutting board, which is no. That'll dull out your knives. You want a nice end grain wood, plastic, but lots of people are coming out with videos now of like cutting stuff on a cutting board and then showing the plastic in their hand from all the little chips of a used cutting board, and it's like, okay, yeah, those
maybe
microplastics, that's wood. All right, let's go wood. Yeah.
I never understood the glass cutting board idea.
Yeah.
It seems so
clack.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to snap it. Like I'm always terrified I'm going to break it.
Yeah.
We don't have one.
No.
No, good. We went to a sushi party for a friend of ours a few years ago, and I'd made him a nice yanagiba. It's a sushi cutting knife. It's like long, slender, really fine cuts. And I delivered it to him, and he's like, I'll get my cutting board. And he came up with a glass cutting board. And I was like, no. No, you don't.
Bad idea.
Let's go find something else. So,
cool.
Yeah.
You make judging by your website and a lot of your social media, you have sort of a line of knives that you make, but you also make custom ones.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So basically you have to have your standard knives that people can just go on the website and be like, oh, I like that model. And Justin happens to have a handle that I really like, and it's available now. So click buy, done. Or, I've got, like, some people reach out with a piece of wood that grandfather had on his shelf, or part of his shelf, and they'll send me a piece of that, and that'll become the handle. Or they can go fully custom. They can, like, actually, Tyler from Camp Kitsch, he had reached out last year, and he was like, I want something that'll, like, it'll help me harvest wood from the forest, but also cut vegetables nicely. I was like, oh man, that's a task, because they don't necessarily translate. So we chatted a little bit. I drew something up that could potentially work. I'd love to go down that road. It'd be an interesting project, but yeah, so people can reach out, do fully custom, or just a base model knife that I have. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of custom knives,
Mhm.
I saw that you were the winner of the International Metal My Way with your Wheel of Time inspired knife.
Yeah.
That was gorgeous. Like, it's just a stunning piece.
Yeah, thank you. That was uh, an integration of Damascus steel, which is a layering of different types of steel that'll etch differently when you put it in acid. So parts of the steel will stay nice and shiny, like you'd imagine, and then other steels kind of get eaten away. They oxidize and leave a black finish to it. And because of that, you want to go down another rabbit hole, there's a whole other rabbit hole, like a huge one. um, but I kept it pretty simple. But those Damascus layers, I also sandwiched with a solid steel core, and then in between that put a layer of copper. So I had Damascus, copper core, copper, Damascus to do my 5 layers. And yeah, submitted photos to the competition. That was a custom order. A hunter who was getting married, and she wanted something special for her husband. And I was like, all right, during summer I like to take on like 1 or 2 projects that push my limits, things that I haven't really done before, and that had some really complex grinds on it. And yeah, submitted and won that. That was awesome. Got to go on the news and talk about my craft like I'm doing now, except 12 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, the husband must have been thrilled with that.
Oh yeah. I had to get it back so I could bring it on the news. So we had to meet up, and yeah. Oh, that when I delivered the knife to the bride, she came and picked it up, and she saw it, and she was like, "This is amazing, and can I have a hug? Like, this is perfect." And it's like, oh yeah, like there's a lot of like good moments when someone gets a piece that they envisioned in their head, and they can't make it themselves, so I become the hands of their imagination, and then push it further, try to make it as nice as possible.
Yeah, you just can't go on Amazon and buy something like that. So
Oh no.
you need.
There's a lot of places where you can buy stuff like that, but a lot of it is coming in from Pakistan and India, and then some have been reported with like lead content in it. So if you're finding like, oh, a Damascus knife for like $70, it could be lasered, so they'll put it on a laser and just bzz, 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 make it look like Damascus, or it's mystery steels sandwiched together, and it could be nasty, and not hold a good edge, and yeah.
Well, I don't want lead on anything that's touching my
No,
food.
no,
So
not at all. Yeah.
that's just rude. Man. Out of curiosity, how many knives do you make in a given month, year?
I really don't know. I try not to track it because because it is such a slow process. Some months it'll be just 3 or 4, and other months maybe it's I don't know, 30 or 40. I make a small hiking knife called the ultralight knife,
Right.
and it gets retailed in a shop in Minneapolis called Garage Grown Gear, and on my website as well. And with the sheath, it comes in a little Kydex sheath and a short lanyard kind of like kind of just survival rope or whatever. And those I can bang out pretty quickly. But I outsource the water jetting. So there's a gentleman here in Winnipeg that has steel for me, and I could message him and give him some changes to my design, little tweaks or whatnot. And I'll be like, I'll take 40 of them, I'll take 50 of them, and then ship little packages out to Minneapolis so that they can retail them. And yeah, they come in at about an ounce each, so they're great for the ultralight packers who I don't know, who need a knife on the trail. Nice to trim the heels behind your pants when you're dragging on them or something like that.
And is that one of your more popular items, or what's your most popular knife?
I'd say it's one of my most popular. My Cisco is fairly popular as well. I sold a bunch of them last spring. They're a shorter knife, smaller kind of form, full tang. I did a trade with Will from Bowman Outdoors last year as well. He sent me a couple of his awesome packs, and I sent him a knife, and enjoy those in the outdoors. So they're 80 CRV2 steel, so it's like a super tough carbon steel. So not a stainless steel, but a carbon steel. So you need to be a little bit careful with moisture. But those I etch as well, so that gives it a light resistance to moisture as well, because it's pre-oxidized on the outside. And yeah, that's probably my most popular two knives. And then with the kitchen stuff, it's a little bit all over the map. I'm getting more into like Japanese style knives, and I think I see the influence in the blades that I make, just with the curvatures and the aesthetics. But yeah, to another road to travel down.
Cool. Well, that keeps it interesting though, like making, having things change as time progresses, right?
Right. Well, I'm learning things as I go. Like this Christmas, I had, I think, 5 leather sheaths to make, because they were, there's a special knife, I want to add a sheath to it. It was like, okay, sure, no problem. And then next customer. I was like, okay, this is the most sheaths I've made like all year, like in one sitting. Great. And like, it works a little bit better if the leather's a little bit wetter, because it'll take it's just easier to stitch when she's a little bit moisture. It's easier to pass the needle through, and to stamp and everything. So as I gain more experience, I'm making nicer knives. So it's yeah, the more you make, the better you get at it. So
You're the president of the Manitoba Blacksmith Guild. Are there a lot of members of the Blacksmith Guild?
Yes, there's quite a few members in Manitoba. I think we peaked out probably around the 65 mark in 1 year of blacksmiths. And a lot of the guys that come out there, like your backyard blacksmith, who like, ooh, it's nice out, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, and I'm gonna go make something. So they'll come out to our events and get just the camaraderie of meeting other blacksmiths, sharing of knowledge. We often do a demonstration in the morning. So we'll have one of our, either from the executive or someone in the community that we can reach out to that is specialized in something, and they'll come out, do a demonstration. It might take an hour, it might take 2 hours for that to happen. And then it's open forge time, and it's generally like directed to making that project from the morning. So it's a good time. Like we'll often do overnight camping in Derek's yard out in Brandon, and have a campfire at night and just sharing stories. Yeah, drinking pop around the fire, and
special pop.
Yeah, bubblies. And yeah, it's just a great time. And it's like, we have a few women as well that have joined the guild. We've got our youngest member last year was 15, and he came out to all of the events as well. And yeah, so we're super inclusive. We're not excluding anyone to come out, and yeah, usually good food, hot steel, and good times.
That sounds fun.
Oh, and this year, August 2025, the national conference is in Manitoba as well. So we're getting demonstrators from California, Pennsylvania, Vancouver, Montreal, and locally, obviously. And they're coming to Manitoba to really show off their, or not show off, but to educate us so we can learn over a 3-day period.
Right on.
Yeah, yeah.
That's very cool.
Oh yeah.
You were talking about leather work, and sorry, because we know Tyler. So you've had yaks with him. We've had Will on the show. You've done some bartering with him. Have
Right.
you had any conversation with Brittany and Tunis from A Freak of Nature?
No, no.
You should look them up.
Yeah.
Brit's getting really, really good with her leather work. They've been doing it for, I want to say, a couple of years now.
It's been years since we talked to them.
And it's, yeah, she's pretty awesome. She does some custom stuff. They do some regular stuff, but yeah, if you want to do any of that sort of back and forth leather stuff, they're the
leather's
ones. Leather's
amazing. How you can like you all the dyes and the paints that you can use, and then like the endless types of rivets and bedazzling that you can add. But the malleability, you can shape it and create texture and form with it, and like wrap it around items. It's an incredible medium. So yeah, I'll check them out, definitely.
Yeah.
And you hand stitch the sheaths that you make?
Yes, my hands are sore today.
So the evolution of Freak of Nature, they started out the same way, and
oh yeah,
when Britt announced that they got a stitcher, the excitement in her voice,
oh yeah,
and her poor fingers just like,
yeah,
woo.
Oh definitely, yeah. It's one of those things that like it takes time, which is fine, but the grip strength, and like you're constantly snagging onto that needle and pulling through. Ooh, yeah. A stitcher would be fantastic.
There you go. So why don't you tell us a bit more, like you're part of this community that uses knives for specific things. Part of that deal is camping. What do you do? You jump in a canoe and obviously do some lakes and stuff in Manitoba. I mean, I know what Ontario's like. I have no idea what Manitoba's like.
Yeah. We have the two, I guess, 3 lakes in Manitoba. If you look at the map, you'll have Lake Winnipeg, Lake Manitoba, and Winnipegosis. So we're basically a basin where all the rivers from, I guess, Western Northern Ontario is feeding into Manitoba, going towards these lakes. From Saskatchewan, Alberta, same situation. We've got water coming in from everywhere. So the river network here is awesome. Like we have the heritage of the Métis, the Coureurs des Bois, the fur traders coming in from Montreal. So like the idea of canoeing is really part of the classroom curriculum. Like I remember from grade 3 on, like talking about the French coming into Manitoba, trading furs and traveling back by canoe, and that sense of adventure for myself has always been there. We had, for myself, I used to camp at Lake Winnipegau, which is about 3 hours northeast of Winnipeg, and there was this little lake called Saxton Lake where it was like the mythical lake when I was a kid. Like the fish there are huge, all the fish are big. You're gonna catch so many. So for me, it was like a combination of that Métis culture of canoeing and Saxton Lake, trying to get there. And we had gone on adventures trying to find this lake, and eventually I went with my cousin and we paddled up Beaver Creek and up the little he lost his glasses. We dropped our beer. We turned around. It took a few expeditions to actually make it to Saxton Lake. We did get there eventually. Just Jack and all little ones. So it was a little disappointing, but an awesome trip. Recently, the summer, I usually do a couple guys trips. So it's May long weekend. We extend our weekend on the front end, back end, so we get a few more days out in the woods, and we'll pick a point on the map. We've got a few favorite spots that we'd like to go to, and just load everything into the canoes and head out. We're usually 4 or 5 canoes at that point, so we're a fairly large group, but it makes for awesome meals. We'll share the task, who's got Saturday breakfast, who's got Saturday dinner, and so on and so forth. We haul cast iron pans, and you got to have your cast iron.
I'm not lugging it. No way.
No, well, we don't have that elevation change, so
There you go.
maybe that's our benefit here. And then I'll do trips with my wife. She loves canoeing. My daughter loves canoeing. I used to take my son as well. He's kind of like, it's not really for me. So he's old enough now. He can just stay home. That's fine. And those we usually take simpler trips. But this last year I went with my wife and did the ELA, Experimental Lakes area. There's a loop through there, and you have to climb Devil's Staircase there, and that's an arduous little climb. But yeah, so my trips kind of look from guys adventure to just serene moments in the woods with my wife out in solitude. So a bit of blend of both.
That's a good mix. It's a very similar deal here. It's I'm out with my eldest most of the time when we're in a canoe and backcountry. Usually like 7-8 day things, but we
awesome.
do a less backcountry-ish, 3-day kind of a thing, and just chill, just hang, just watch ducks swim around.
Totally. Yeah, there's nothing like getting up, starting your campfire, and then like getting the coffee going and hearing the loons out on the lake and kind of the mist going by, and it's like, I live for that.
Peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Hard to make knives out there, but it's a good time.
You make them at home and then bring them out there. Yeah.
There you go. All right. So tell me, where can people find you? Where do they website, Instagram, all that sort of jazz?
Yeah. Everything is Rainy Day Forge. So rainydayforge.com.ca, and on socials as well. Just Rainy Day Forge.
Awesome.
Very cool. Well, thanks for coming and yakking with us, man.
Yeah, no, I've been listening for about a year now, and when it pops up in my ears, I'm like, oh, camping, nice, my happy place. So I'm happy to be here.
Same here.
Yeah,
same here. All right,
that's it for us for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much also to Justin from Rainy Day Forge for joining us, and please do check him out at Rainy Day Forge wherever you want to look, and look for us as Super Good Camping on social media, and we're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Blue Sky, and you can follow us on TikTok and on YouTube, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye.